Hey y'all, it's your girl Callie, and in this video I'll be teaching you guys how to get this green smoky eye look. Stay tuned. So I start my face with a color corrector. I don't always use it, but I'm using it in this look because I have some spots on my face and it's my time of the month. I have a few little breakouts and I find that using color corrector makes them flatter so my face doesn't look as textured in those spots. I'm using the color corrector out of the Anastasia Beverly Hills cream contour kit. I was going to blend it out, but I'm just actually going to leave it there. That way it can soak into my skin. So when I blend it out, it's a little dry and I can put my concealer or foundation right over top. I'm going right into the brows using the Anastasia Beverly Hills number 12 eyebrow pencil or eyebrow brush. And I'm using the Anastasia Beverly Hills chocolate pomade. It is the best product ever. I try to use other things. I tried e.l.f., but I have very oily skin, so I find that the pomade dries and it stays on really, really good. So I really like it. So once my brows are done, I go in usually with my concealer, but I recently started using the P. Louise base in the number 3. So I wanted to try that underneath my brows because I like the consistency and the shade that it's in. I meant to get a lighter shade, but I ended up getting a shade that was close to my concealer color, so I thought I would give it a try. Then I started adjusting my ring light because I wasn't liking the color it was in. So I'm just going directly under my brow, cleaning it up. I like my brows to be very, very, very sharp. So I go over them very precisely to try to get a very crisp and clean look. Once I get that concealer under there, I'll go ahead and put some more on my eyelid also because I'm going to use this as my base before I lay down those colors. So I go ahead and blend out that base onto my eye. I try not to use a swiping motion because I want it to be very even across the eye. That makes for a smoother blend when you put your shadows on. So I just kind of like to blot it around just to make sure that I get the entire eye and there aren't any patches. I really like this P. Louise base. It's very high coverage, but it's not thick, so it's not hard to blend over top, which I really, really enjoy. Once I do that, I'm gonna go above my eyebrow just to clean it up and give it a sharper look. I'm using my foundation, which is the MAC Studio Fix Fluid. It's my go-to foundation. I've been wearing it for years. I usually go over my eyebrow with concealer, but I wanted the main focus to be my eyes, considering I was doing such a dramatic color. So I didn't want to take away from that with a halo brow as well. I felt like that would be too much. So I just went ahead and blended it out. And I try to be careful with the top so I don't nick any of my eyebrow because I really, really hate going over it again. So I'm just going ahead and blending that out with the same buffing brush I used before. It's actually a BH Cosmetics brush. I use this brush a lot when it comes to blending because it's very dense, but it's good as well. So now that my eyes are set, I'm going in with a James Charles palette. I'm using the nude color. It's one of the transition colors, and I'm just setting my eye. And then I'm going in with the black. And I'm using a angle brush because I'm going to cut my crease. So I just want to go ahead and kind of set the foundation for myself for where the crease is going to be cut. So I'm just making a line with that black shadow, and then I'm going to go in with a blending brush, a small tapered blending brush, and I'm going to go ahead and blend that out. So I'm going to do that on both my eyes. So now I'm going in with that small tapered blending brush that I mentioned before, and I'm just trying to blow out that black a little bit. I don't want it to be a harsh line, so I'm just trying to buff it as much as I can just to make it a little smoother on the edges. I'm going to layer 2 more colors on top of it, but I find that when you're using a dark color like black and you don't buff it out first, it's really hard to blend it once you lay the colors on top. So at this point, I'm going in with the darkest green they have in that James Charles palette, and I am just trying to blow out that black. I want the colors to blend together, but I also want you to be able to see where they separate because I want it to have a gradient effect. So I'm just going over with that same taper brush I'm going to use for the rest of the top part of this look, and I'm just blending that in. I'll just keep going in with the green, and then I'll eventually go back with the black and sharpen it up as well. So you see right there, I'm going in with the black again just to darken it up because I don't want to lose the potency of the black, but I also want to build on top of it because once I cut the crease, the black is just going to be a small thin line. So I did end up going back in with the black a little bit heavy because I was noticing that while I was blending the green in, I was losing a lot of that black, and I didn't want to do that. So I did go ahead back in with that black again. And then once I'm done with the black, I take the lightest green in the James Charles palette and I blow out the top of that darkest green. So I'm just trying to blend that out because I really want it to be a nice gradient effect. Sometimes when I do looks like this, I do get scared because it looks crazy at first until you really get into it. So at this point, deep down inside, I was like, girl, what is going on? But I knew that I was going to pull through, so I'm just packing it on at first. I like to pack the shadow on and then blend it out. I feel like it makes the colors brighter. So you can see when I packed it on my eye just then, it was a little bit dull at first, and then I brightened it up, and then I went in with a blending brush. It was clean, it had nothing on it, just to blend everything together because I didn't want anything to be blotchy or too dark in some areas. And then I went over the very top of my eye with that same transition color I used in the very beginning. I don't like to use color too close to my eyebrow, so I always try to buff out the very end of it with a transition shade just so that it keeps my brow nice and separated. So I went ahead and cut my crease. I usually use a makeup wipe, but I ran out. So off camera, I just went ahead and cut the crease with a little bit of hemp oil that I had. And now I'm going back over in that blank space with the P. Louise base. I really love this base. And also a question that I get a lot when I do my cut creases is how do I determine how high I'm going to go? It's different for everyone, but I have hooded eyes, so I have to go above my crease. If not, I'll have a lot of transfer, which is why I choose to go so high when I cut it, because if I don't, then I'll cut the crease, and then as I blink my eyes, whatever color I put in that middle piece will transfer above. So I'm just going ahead and I'm putting it on in a patting motion so that it can be an even layer just as before. And then you'll see I'll go back in with that same brush and I will buff it out. So once I cut the crease with the P. Louise, I went into the BH Cosmetics Take Me to Brazil palette, and I found a nice green color that I thought would look good with the darker colors I had up top. And I just went ahead and set that down in a patting motion. You don't want to sweep the colors across if you want them to be very pigmented and bright. So I'm just doing that in a tapping motion so that all that color is just right there. And then I go into my Juvia's Place Masquerade palette, and there is like a shimmery green in there, and I just went ahead and laid that on top. Once I was done packing in that shimmery color, I went back into the Take Me to Brazil palette. I went for a green that was a little darker. I was trying to transition from light to dark since I'm going to be putting black on the end of my eye. I didn't want to just go from that bright shimmery shade to the black. So I got an in-between shade. It's kind of like a forest green color. And I packed that color in. And I got into the shimmery color as well because I still want to blend them together. So I want it to look just the same as the top, like a gradient effect. And I just packed that color in, and then I went in with a brush and just blended the shimmery side with the darker matte side. So at this point, I'm just packing on that black shadow. I'm using the black shadow to create a cat eye effect. I was going to use gel liner, but I didn't have a black, so I'll just compromise and use my black shadow. I did it in a cat eye shape, and then whatever was left on my brush, I brought it around those two colors that I had already laid. Obviously, you see, I was really liking the outcome at this point. And I just wanted to bring it back around. That way it was a cut crease, but I also had a small little halo eye, and that black really brought the look together. So I went ahead and cleaned up the bottom of my eyes, and I'm just adding a little more color corrector because I did have a little bit of black fallout. So I went ahead and added some more and went back in with that buffing brush, and I really try to focus on pushing the corrector into my skin. And you try not to put a heavy layer on because you don't want this to mix with your foundation or your concealer at all because it's going to show underneath. So I'm really pushing that into my skin with that brush. I'm not using a beauty blender because I don't want the beauty blender to soak up any of the corrector because I really need the corrector to do its job at this point. So I'm just pushing it in, trying to get my skin to soak it all up and getting it ready for some foundation. So on this video, I tried a new foundation routine. I watched Tailor Made Jane, and she only uses the products that she needs to in the places she needs to use them in. So she puts on her contour, she puts on her highlighter, and she puts her foundation on it in between. So this was my first time doing that. So yeah, I was a little nervous, but it all came together in the end. You'll see it looks a little crazy though. So as far as products, I used the Black Opal foundation stick for my contour, and now I'm going in with the Juvia's Place concealer. Looking back on using this technique, I'll probably use less concealer because the Juvia's Place concealer is very wet and it's very, very full coverage. So I realized that once I went in and started blending it out, the concealer took a lot of the color away. So I did have to go in again with the contour, but I really, really do like the way that the foundation came out. You'll see at the end, it looks crazy right now, but it is flawless. And if you're a full coverage queen like me, this is definitely a technique to pick up. So I went ahead and buffed everything into the skin. I'm just buffing in a little more contour at this point. I realized that, like I said before, I had put a lot of concealer on. So I went ahead and got a beauty blender and wet it with some matte spray. I used the continuous matte spray from Morphe. I got the beauty blender wet, and then I just went over my face just to soak up any excess product that I had, because I didn't want to set it with powder just on top of that alone, because then it would have made for a cakey face. So I just went over the whole face with the beauty blender, just soaking up any excess product. Once I was done going over it with the beauty blender and I was satisfied, I went ahead and started setting with powder. I always set under my eyes with the Charlotte Tilbury mattifying powder. It is my favorite. I mean, I'm almost hitting the pan on it at this point. I do that with a fluffy brush because I don't want to crease under my eyes. So I just go ahead again in a tapping motion in every place that I've highlighted. I put this mattifying powder. It is my go-to because I am very, very, very oily, especially in my T-zone. So I definitely go in and set with that. Once I set with this, I'm going to go in with my Sephora Micro Smoothing Powder, some contour powder from the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, and then I go in with a NARS bronzer to just heat up the skin and, you know, give it a warm glow. Because once you set, sometimes it looks a little ghostly. Once my face was powdered, I went into my Anastasia Aurora palette, and there was like a blue highlight, and I went ahead and put that in my inner corner because it looked a little green once I put it on, and I really, really, really liked that color. And it was just popping at this point. I was really feeling myself. So I put that in my inner corner of my eye, and then I go in with my highlighting brush, and I use the gold color, and I put some of that on my nose, my cheeks, under my eyebrows, and on my Cupid's bow. And I'm happy to say this was the finished look. I really appreciate you guys for watching. Please come back and watch some more, like and subscribe, and follow my Instagram page.